Hello. So in this video I'm going to walk you through the process of resolving a cadential 6/4 chord. And I'm going to use the first example from our homework for this week. The worksheet's titled Leading Tone and Cadential 6/4 Chords. And in each case they're all in major keys. So we start off in each case with a leading tone 7th chord. Now, in all of these cases, the leading tone 7th chord is in 3rd inversion. So if you'll remember from last week, when the leading tone 7th chord is in 3rd inversion, it resolves to a 1/6/4. And now that we know how that 1/6/4 usually behaves, we're going to go ahead and complete the progression ending with a tonic triad. Alright, so in the first example here we are in E flat major, and our leading tone 7th chord here we have D is the leading tone, right, and the root of the chord. So from root up we have D, F, A flat, C, right, root, 3rd, 5th, and 7th. Now our first step is going to be to resolve the 7th down by step, right, just like we were doing last time. In this case, the 7th is in the bass, so we are going to move that down to a B here. Now, you'll also remember that when the leading tone 7th chord is in 3rd inversion, it's a little bit of an exception, right? Normally, we would want to find the tritone and resolve it properly. In this case, that would be A flat and the tenor up to D in the soprano, which is the augmented 4th, right? So normally, again, we would resolve that augmented 4th outwards. The A flat would go down to a G in the tenor, and the soprano would go from a D up to an E flat in the soprano. Okay, and then we would then be left to fill in the last voice with the alto. However, since this triad is in 2nd inversion, right, e.g. B, the 5th is in the bass, that means we're going to need to double our 5th, right? Tonic and triad in 2nd inversion, we always double the 5th of the chord. This means that this F would have to jump all the way down to a B flat here, or perhaps up to a B flat here, which is a little bit too much of a leap. So what you're going to be doing with these leading tone 7th chords is instead of making that leap, we're just going to write unequal fifths, and in order to be able to have smooth stepwise motion in all 3 of the upper voices. Okay, so it's going to look something like this. Instead of moving the tenor down to a G, we are going to move this up to a B, right? And so our unequal fifths are, it's not unequal fifths in this case, but it's just the fact that the tritone doesn't resolve properly, right? It's actually spelled as a 4th, so it would be an augmented 4th to a perfect 4th, right? A flat to D and B flat to E flat, right? So we're not going to resolve the tritone properly this time. Like I said, it's a bit of an exception, as you probably remember from completing the last worksheet, right? And this allows us to move the tenor voice up from an F to a G, right? So now we have our tonic 6/4 chord, right, or our cadential 6/4 chord here. It's an E flat major triad, with a 5th in the bass, and the 5th is doubled, as we always need to do, right? B flat, another B flat, G, and E flat. So if you'll remember, the cadential 6/4 chord always resolves in a very specific way, and it always resolves to a root position dominant triad. That's very important. Okay, so since we have the root doubled, these are always, you can keep these as common tones, right? We're going to keep the B flat in the bass. We will keep the B flat in the tenor. And since now we are on a 5 chord, this is our root, right? It's going to be a 5 chord, B flat major triad in root position, and now our root is doubled. See how that works? So this is part of the reason that we always double the fifth of the second inversion triad, because when it resolves this way, you can keep both of these notes as common tones, and now you have our root doubled for our root position triad. Okay, and then the other two voices need to resolve in a very specific way as well, right? This E flat in the soprano, which is a fourth above the bass, is going to go down to a third above the bass, D, and the alto, which is a G, which is a sixth above the bass, will move down to an F, right? So this continues our pattern, right, of the fourth above the bass moves down to a third, and the sixth above a bass moves down to a fifth above the bass. So that's our pattern of resolving the cadential 6/4 chord, right? You'll also see that it's a pretty obvious choice now that we have, if you know what all your chord tones are, this is simply the easiest and smoothest way to resolve a chord anyhow. But you'll also remember from the last video, these two upper voices, or whatever voice they happen to be in, these two tones arise from suspensions and passing tones, and that's why they always need to resolve down in stepwise motion like that. Okay? And then finally, so far we have our leading tone 7th chord and 3rd inversion, right? So for our Roman numeral analysis below, we would write 7 half diminished 4/2, right? This is our cadential 6/4 chord, so we would write 1/6/4 in parentheses, right? Because it technically is a tonic triad, but it functions more as an embellishment or a prolongation of dominant harmony. So we're going to write 1/6/4 in parentheses here, and then finally this is our 5 chord, and then to finish the progression we're going to resolve that dominant triad to a tonic triad. So that's going to look like this. We'll simply move the soprano back up to an B flat. The alto can go back up to a G. The tenor we can keep as a common tone, and the bass will of course move up or down to E flat, right? And then that's our final tonic triad in root position, right? E, G, B flat with the root doubled since we're in root position, right? Okay, so the whole progression will sound like this. So for the other examples on this page, you're simply going to repeat that same procedure in 2 different keys, right? So good luck, and I will see you next time.